The Galactic Peace Summit had been hailed as the pinnacle of interstellar diplomacy. Representatives from the known galaxy's most powerful civilizations gathered on the neutral station Concordia Spire, a floating monolith of polished obsidian and glowing golden spires. It was the symbol of harmony, or at least, the illusion of it. For decades, humanity's presence at the summit had been tolerated, but not embraced. The human diplomat, Linara Caine, was determined to change that. Linara, sharp-eyed and impeccably dressed in Earth's blue and silver diplomatic attire, paced the room as her aide, Tobias Wren, reviewed her notes. The air was tense, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. "Do you think they'll listen this time?" Tobias asked, his youthful face betraying his uncertainty. Linara smirked, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "They'll have no choice. The Galactic Empire has overstepped, and this time we have the evidence to prove it." "Unless they deny it outright," Tobias muttered, glancing at the stack of datapads on the table. "They always do." Linara's smirk turned into a grim line. "Not this time. The Empire broke the peace treaty by attacking Europa Station, and we have surveillance footage to back it up. They've crossed the line, and they're going to answer for it." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The door slid open, revealing a towering alien with gleaming metallic skin and glowing yellow eyes. Ambassador Vrexen of the Rilkuth Dominion, one of humanity's few allies, entered with his usual air of quiet confidence. "Ambassador Caine," Vrexen said, inclining his head. "The council session is about to begin. Are you ready to confront the Empire?" "Always," Linara replied, her tone steely. "But I'll need your support, Vrexen. Humanity's voice isn't strong enough to carry alone." "You'll have it," Vrexen assured her. "But tread carefully. The Empire doesn't respond well to public humiliation." Linara gave a wry smile. "Good thing I'm not here to coddle their ego." The Grand Council chamber of Concordia Spire was as imposing as it was awe-inspiring. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy sat in a tiered amphitheater, their appearances as varied as the stars. The Imperial delegation, led by High Chancellor Kareth Veln, occupied a prominent position near the center. The Chancellor, clad in regal crimson and gold, exuded an air of superiority that Linara found utterly grating. As Linara took her place at the central podium, the murmur of voices quieted. The Council's presiding officer, a translucent being of light known as a Rith Prime, floated above the assembly. Ambassador Caine of Earth, a Rith Prime intoned, their voice resonating like 1,000 chimes. "You have the floor." Linara stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I stand before you today to address a grievous violation of the Interstellar Peace Accord. The Empire has attacked a civilian research station in human space, killing hundreds of innocents and leaving countless more displaced. We have evidence of their warships breaching our borders and initiating an unprovoked assault." She activated a holographic display, which projected damning footage of Imperial warships firing upon Europa Station. Gasps rippled through the chamber as the images played. High Chancellor Veln rose from his seat, his expression cold and imperious. "This is a fabrication," he declared, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "The Empire has no need to strike at humanity. We gain nothing from such actions." Linara met his gaze, unflinching. "Your denials are as hollow as your promises of peace, Chancellor. The Empire has always viewed humanity as expendable. But we will not stand idly by while you slaughter our people." The chamber erupted into debate, voices clashing as allies and rivals alike weighed in. Linara stood her ground, her presence commanding even in the face of the Empire's bluster. A Rith Prime raised a luminous appendage, silencing the room. "Ambassador Caine, the Council will deliberate on these allegations. A decision will be made in due time." As the session adjourned, Linara turned to leave, but a sharp voice stopped her. "Ambassador Caine." She turned to see Chancellor Veln approaching, his entourage trailing behind him like shadows. His gaze was piercing, his tone dripping with contempt. You tread a dangerous path, human. The Empire's patience has limits. Linara's eyes narrowed. And so does humanity's. We will defend ourselves, Chancellor, whether the Council stands with us or not. Back in her quarters, Linara reviewed the day's proceedings with Tobias and Vrexen. The tension was palpable. Do you think the Council will act? Tobias asked. Vrexen's metallic features shifted in what could only be described as a grimace. The Council fears the Empire's wrath. Even with your evidence, they may hesitate to intervene. Linara clenched her fists. Then we'll force their hand. Humanity won't be bullied into silence. Before they could continue, the comm unit on Linara's desk chimed. She answered, and a frazzled officer appeared on the screen. Ambassador, we've received reports of Imperial ships gathering near the border. It looks like a full-scale invasion. Linara's blood ran cold. How long do we have? Hours, at best. She ended the call and turned to Vrexen and Tobias. It's begun. The Empire isn't waiting for the Council's decision, they're declaring war. Tobias paled. What do we do? Linara's jaw tightened. We fight back. And we make them regret underestimating humanity. Linara called an emergency meeting of her team. Her words were resolute as she outlined their next steps. The Council may delay, but we won't. Humanity has endured too much to bow now. We'll rally our fleets, coordinate with our allies, and show the Empire that their arrogance will be their downfall. The stakes had shifted. What began as a diplomatic confrontation had escalated into a fight for survival, and Linara Caine was determined to meet it head-on. The clock ticked relentlessly as Linara Caine stood on the bridge of the Eclipse's Vow, the flagship of Earth's diplomatic fleet. The Imperial forces were no longer a rumor. Long-range sensors confirmed their presence at the border, an ominous array of warships poised to strike. The Galactic Council had yet to issue a statement, their deliberations moving at a glacial pace while humanity braced for the inevitable. Linara gripped the edge of the command console, her mind racing with possibilities. Tobias Vren, her ever-loyal aide, stood beside her, his face pale but determined. Across the room, Vrexen monitored the tactical readouts with a cold efficiency that only a Rilketh could manage. They're going to hit our colonies first, Vrexen said, his metallic voice calm but firm. It's the Empire's way, crush the outer defenses to send a message. Linara nodded, her tone sharp. Then we need to make sure that message is garbled. Tobias frowned, his voice tinged with worry. The colonies aren't equipped to hold off an attack of this scale. Even with our fleet, we're outnumbered 5-1. Outnumbered isn't the same as outmatched, Linara said. If we can disrupt their advance, force them to overextend, we can buy time for reinforcements, and pressure the Council to act. But how do we disrupt a fleet that size? Tobias asked. Linara turned to Vrexen, her eyes narrowing. We hit them where it hurts. The Empire's fleet was vast, a moving wall of death and destruction as it advanced toward the human colony of Aurora Prime. The colony, a lush world teeming with life, was both a symbol of humanity's resilience and a strategic target for the Empire. Losing Aurora Prime would cripple humanity's morale and resources in one blow. The Eclipse's Vow and its accompanying fleet hid in the shadow of a nearby asteroid belt, their stealth systems keeping them invisible to the Empire's sensors. Linara stood on the bridge, her gaze locked on the tactical display. The Empire's supply ships are unguarded at the rear of the formation, Vrexen observed. If we destroy them, their fleet will be forced to halt and regroup. Tobias raised an eyebrow. That's a big if. Getting to those ships without being detected is next to impossible. Linara smirked, a spark of defiance lighting her eyes. Good thing humanity specializes in the impossible. She turned to the comm officer. Send a message to the fleet. We're executing Operation Thorn. Operation Thorn was a bold, high-risk maneuver designed to exploit the Empire's overconfidence. While the main fleet maintained its stealth position, a small strike team led by Linara herself would infiltrate the Empire's supply convoy using modified civilian freighters. The freighters, disguised as merchant vessels, carried enough explosives to cripple the convoy in one swift strike. As the team prepared for departure, Tobias confronted Linara in the hangar bay. "You don't have to do this, you know. You're the ambassador. If something happens to you..." "Humanity loses its voice," Linara finished, her tone soft but resolute. "I know the stakes, Tobias. But I can't ask others to risk their lives if I'm not willing to do the same." Tobias hesitated, then nodded. "Just, don't get yourself killed, all right?" Linara smiled faintly. "That's the plan." The freighters slipped into the convoy undetected, their transponders mimicking Imperial supply codes. Linara sat in the cramped cockpit of the lead ship, her hands steady on the controls. Around her, the crew worked in tense silence, their nerves frayed but their resolve unshaken. "Convoy command is hailing us," one of the crew members reported. "They're asking for our cargo manifest." "Send it," Linara said. "Make it look routine." The crew complied, and for a moment, the tension on the freighter was palpable. Then, the convoy's response came through, a curt acknowledgement, allowing the freighters to proceed. "Step 1 complete," Linara muttered. "Now for the hard part." As the freighters moved deeper into the convoy, Linara activated the detonator codes. The explosives were set to go off in a chain reaction, targeting the largest supply ships first. "Everyone to the escape pods," she ordered. "We've got 60 seconds." The crew moved quickly, abandoning the freighters as the timer ticked down. Linara was the last to leave, her eyes lingering on the ticking detonator before she climbed into the pod. The pods jettisoned just as the freighters exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave tore through the convoy, ripping apart supply ships and scattering the Empire's formation. From the safety of their escape pods, Linara and her crew watched as the convoy descended into chaos. Back on the Eclipse's bow, Linara was greeted with cheers and applause as she stepped onto the bridge. The destruction of the convoy had forced the Empire's fleet to halt, buying precious time for humanity's defenses to regroup. "Mission accomplished," Tobias said, grinning. "I can't believe that actually worked." Linara allowed herself a small smile. "The Empire thinks it can crush us with brute force. We just proved that brains beat brawn every time." But the victory was short-lived. Vrexen approached, his expression grim. "The Empire won't take this lightly. They'll retaliate with everything they have." Linara's smile faded, her gaze hardening. "Let them. Humanity isn't just fighting for survival, we're fighting for respect. And the Empire is about to learn what happens when they push us too far." As the fleet regrouped, Linara called a meeting of her senior staff. The Empire's retaliation was inevitable, but she had no intention of waiting for it to land. Instead, she proposed a daring counteroffensive, an attack on the Empire's forward command post, deep within enemy territory. "It's risky," Tobias said, studying the map. "If we fail, we lose everything." Linara's eyes blazed with determination. "And if we succeed, we break their momentum. The Empire thrives on fear and intimidation. It's time we turned that against them." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but one by one, they nodded in agreement. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and Linara was determined to make the Empire pay for their arrogance. As the fleet prepared for the next phase of the war, Linara stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. The stakes had never been higher, but she felt no fear, only a burning resolve to protect her people and show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The decision to strike at the Empire's forward command post sent shockwaves through the fleet. Linara's boldness inspired her crew, but it also placed them on a razor's edge. The command post, known as Ironhold Nexus, was a heavily fortified station orbiting a dying red star. It served as the Empire's primary staging ground for the invasion, bristling with weaponry and defended by an armada of warships. Linara Caine stood on the bridge of the Eclipse's bow, her face lit by the tactical holograms hovering before her. The plan was audacious, a multi-pronged assault that would rely on speed, deception, and overwhelming precision. If they failed, the retaliation would annihilate them. "We're not just hitting their station," Linara said, addressing her senior officers. "We're targeting their pride. The Empire thinks it's invincible. It's time to show them otherwise." Tobias Wren leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "This is the most heavily defended target we've ever faced. How do we even get close enough to make an impact?" Linara activated the display, highlighting weak points in the station's defenses. "Their shields are powered by external relays on these platforms," she explained, pointing to a cluster of smaller satellites surrounding Ironhold Nexus. "If we take those out, their main shields will collapse, leaving them vulnerable." Wrexon, standing near the display, nodded in approval. "A sound strategy. But it will require perfect coordination. The Empire's forces won't hesitate to crush us the moment we're exposed." Linara met his gaze. "That's why we're going to distract them. Tobias, you'll lead a decoy fleet to draw their attention. Wrexon and I will take the strike team to disable the relays. Once the shields are down, the Eclipse's vow will move in for the kill." The combined fleet approached Ironhold Nexus under the cover of a massive solar storm, its swirling plasma clouds providing a brief window of concealment. Linara stood at the helm of the strike team's frigate, her nerves steel as they navigated the storm's turbulence. Tobias's voice crackled over the comms. "Decoy fleet in position. Beginning the distraction." Through the viewport, Linara watched as Tobias's fleet emerged from the storm, firing on the outer defenses of Ironhold Nexus. The station's weapons roared to life, and Imperial warships surged forward to meet the threat. "Now's our chance," Linara said. "Engage stealth systems. Take us to the relay platforms." The frigate slipped through the chaos, its cloaking devices masking its presence. Wrexon stood beside Linara, his metallic features gleaming in the dim light. "Your people are bold, Ambassador. I see now why the Empire fears you." "They don't fear us yet," Linara replied. "But they will." The strike team reached the first relay platform, a spindly structure guarded by automated turrets and patrol ships. Linara led the assault, her team disembarking from the frigate and engaging the defenses with ruthless efficiency. Plasma fire lit up the darkness as Linara fought her way to the platform's core. "Charges set." Carayal called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. 30 seconds to detonation. "Fall back," Linara ordered, covering the team as they retreated to the frigate. The charges detonated moments later, a fiery explosion tearing through the platform and sending debris spiraling into space. "One down," Linara said as she boarded the ship. 2 to go. The second platform proved more challenging. Imperial reinforcements had arrived, and the team was forced to navigate a gauntlet of enemy fighters. Wrexon piloted the frigate with expert precision, evading fire as Linara and her team fought to disable the platform. "Shields down to 20%. Kara reported as they worked. "We need to finish this fast." Linara gritted her teeth. "Hold them off. We're almost there." The team succeeded in planting the charges, but not without losses. One of the operatives was wounded, and the ship sustained heavy damage as they escaped the blast. "We can't keep this up," Tobias warned over the comms. "They're throwing everything they have at us." "We don't need to," Linara replied. "Just one more platform, and their shields are gone." The final platform was a nightmare. The Empire, realizing the threat, had fortified it with elite troops and heavy firepower. Linara's team faced overwhelming odds as they fought their way through the station's defenses. As they reached the core, Linara placed the last charge herself, her hands steady despite the chaos. "This is it," she said. "Get to the ship. I'll cover you." Vrexen hesitated, his metallic eyes meeting hers. You won't survive this alone. That's an order, Linara snapped. Go. The team retreated, but Linara stayed behind, holding off the advancing Imperial forces as the timer ticked down. Her rifle blazed, cutting through wave after wave of enemies. Just as the timer reached 0, Linara dove for cover, the explosion ripping through the platform and hurling her into the void. The Eclipse's vow moved in as the shields around Ironhold Nexus collapsed. The station's defenses faltered, its once impenetrable walls now vulnerable to the fleet's relentless assault. Tobias's voice cracked over the calms. The shields are down. All ships, focus fire on the station. The fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, tearing through the station's hull and igniting its core. Explosions rippled across Ironhold Nexus as the station disintegrated, taking with it the Empire's command structure in the sector. Linara's survival was a miracle. Her escape pod, damaged but intact, was recovered by Vrexen's frigate. As she was brought aboard, battered but alive, the crew erupted into cheers. You're insane, Tobias said, shaking his head as Linara stepped onto the bridge. But you did it. Linara smiled faintly, her voice hoarse. The Empire needed a lesson. And we just taught them one they'll never forget. The destruction of Ironhold Nexus marked a turning point in the war. The Empire's forces, leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Humanity had not only survived, they had triumphed. The ruins of Ironhold Nexus floated silently in orbit, a testament to the boldness and resilience of humanity. The Empire's forces, fractured and scattered, had begun a chaotic retreat, but the battle was far from over. Linara Caine stood on the bridge of the Eclipse's vow, bruised and bandaged but unbroken. The victory was monumental, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on her shoulders. The ship's comm buzzed to life, and Tobias Vren appeared at her side, holding a datapad. The latest reports are in, he said, his voice tight. The Empire's fleets are pulling back, but they've regrouped near the Zareth Nebula. They're not done fighting. Linara nodded, her expression hardening. They'll come back. But this time, we'll be ready. Vrexen, the ever-steady Rilketh ambassador, entered the bridge. Your people have achieved what many thought impossible, he said. The Empire underestimated you, and it cost them dearly. Linara turned to face him. They underestimated us because we've spent years playing by their rules. But now they know we're not just diplomats. We're warriors. As the crew worked tirelessly to repair the Eclipse's vow, Linara convened a meeting with her senior officers and allies. The table in the war room was surrounded by weary but determined faces, a mix of humans and their few alien allies. We've won a critical victory, Linara began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in her posture. But the Empire isn't defeated. They'll regroup, they'll retaliate, and they'll try to crush us again. We can't let that happen. Karayal, the ship's tactical officer, frowned. Our forces are stretched thin, Captain. The fleet's taken heavy losses, and morale is fragile. We need time to rebuild. Time we don't have, Tobias interjected. If the Empire regroups and strikes back before we're ready, we'll lose everything we've gained. Linara tapped a command on the table's console, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared, highlighting the Empire's remaining strongholds. That's why we're not waiting for them to come to us. We're taking the fight to their doorstep. The room fell silent as Linara outlined her plan, a coordinated assault on the Empire's remaining supply lines and strategic outposts. The goal wasn't just to cripple their ability to wage war, it was to force them to the negotiating table on humanity's terms. This isn't just about survival anymore, Linara said, her voice firm. This is about ensuring that humanity is never underestimated or dismissed again. We're fighting for our future. The campaign that followed was swift and relentless. Linara's fleet, bolstered by volunteers from across the colonies and a handful of Concord allies, struck at the Empire's vulnerable points with surgical precision. Supply convoys were ambushed, munitions depots destroyed, and key outposts dismantled. The Empire, caught off guard by the ferocity of humanity's counteroffensive, struggled to respond. Their once dominant fleets were forced to retreat deeper into their territory, their resources dwindling with each passing day. Linara led from the front, her presence on the battlefield inspiring both fear in the Empire and unwavering loyalty among her crew. Her reputation grew with each victory, earning her the grudging respect of even her most skeptical allies. Months later, the Empire finally signaled its willingness to negotiate. The meeting was to take place on Concordia Spire, the same neutral station where Linara had once stood as a dismissed and ignored ambassador. This time, she returned not as a petitioner, but as a victor. The Grand Council chamber was packed, the tension palpable as Linara and her delegation entered. High Chancellor Kareth Veln, his once imposing demeanor diminished, sat across the table. The arrogance that had once defined him was replaced by a wary caution. Ambassador Caine, Veln began, his voice measured. The Empire acknowledges humanity's strength. Let us discuss the terms of peace. Linara's gaze was unflinching. The terms are simple, Chancellor. The Empire will cease all hostilities against humanity and its allies. You will relinquish any claims to our territories and provide reparations for the lives you've destroyed. And you will recognize humanity as an equal member of the Galactic Concord. Veln's jaw tightened, but he nodded. The Empire agrees to your terms. The chamber erupted into murmurs, the historic moment sending ripples through the galaxy. Humanity, once considered a minor player on the interstellar stage, had secured its place as a power to be reckoned with. Back aboard the Eclipse's Vow, the mood was one of cautious celebration. The war was over, but the cost had been high. Linara stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Tobias joined her, his expression a mix of relief and exhaustion. You did it, he said. You brought the Empire to its knees. We did it, Linara corrected, her voice soft. Humanity did. And now we have to live up to what we've earned. Vrexen approached, his metallic features reflecting the starlight. You've reshaped the galaxy, Linara Caine. Humanity's legacy is no longer in question. Linara smiled faintly. Let's hope that legacy is one of strength, and not just rage. As the ship prepared to return home, Linara allowed herself a rare moment of quiet pride. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity's fury, but more importantly, it had learned to respect their resolve. And for Linara, that was the greatest victory of all.